And we are live. Here we are. As always, this is the Sound Advice live stream and podcast. Are we still a podcast, Nick? Do we still have the podcast thing going?
We do. Yep, we have the podcast. I am in the process of updating everything. We were in the process of changing servers. So I've finally changed the server, and now I'm updating everything. It's really great. So Apple, Spotify, pretty much all of them. Stitcher.
So we are the Sound Advice live stream and podcast, and I am Justin, also known as the DIY Audio Guy from the DIY Audio Guy YouTube channel. And as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick from Toyd's DIY Audio. Hey, Nick, tell us what's going on.
Nothing. Just working on the podcast right now. No, I'm just kidding.
It's funny. I got a little counter up here on the screen, seeing how many people we have, and when we started, the number of people we have cut in half.
That's actually kind of funny. They're like, "Oh, forget this." Hey, so you know what actually is going on for real? People have been asking me about this. I am working on the JTR Inspired Build, the 212s. I actually have some glue drying. So when I'm done with the show, I get to put some more bracing in. This thing is going to have some mega bracing. I'm not looking forward to moving this thing at all.
That's like the big, like PA speaker build with 212s, right?
Yeah. So it's an MTM. So a 12-inch, the compression tweeter, and another 12-inch should get you down to probably 30, maybe even 20 hertz in room. So definitely be a full range speaker, and it's going to be designed for home theater mainly, but you can obviously use it for music.
Ow. My cat just attacked me. she just went for it. It's like, I'm sure I'm bleeding now. So
wow. Those cats can be vicious, man.
Looks like, oh, hey, the number of people in the chat just doubled from the original starting point. So that's good. We've got a good crowd tonight. I see some of the usual people here. I see John K and Jason Stokes. Timmy D from the D. I don't think we've seen you on before. Blake is currently using this to ignore his professor.
That's a good idea.
Don't ignore the professor.
Well, it depends on what he's doing. Like
Bobby Burkett. Hi, Bobby. The true voice of reason made it.
If this is his art teacher that he doesn't really care about, then maybe.
Yeah, if you're an art history major, just ignore those and change majors. That's
And TVOR, by the way, just so you guys know, man, huge supporter on the forum, which, by the way, if you want to see updates of that build, the JTR build, get on the forum. But huge, he's helped out so much on that. Really love what he does for me. So I really appreciate him.
Awesome. I'm double checking our show notes because we're going to be talking about amplifiers tonight. We, of course, have some amplifiers that we've listed in the show notes for anyone who would like to. Trying to talk while doing that at the same time. So there are amplifiers in the show notes, and I just realized I didn't turn monetization on, and so that's on right now where it should be on. Hopefully it'll show up. So if you want to drop a super chat, feel free to drop a super chat. We don't say no to those. Got some great people in the chat tonight. Hello, Mullen Performance. Good to see everybody. You're late, but what, by just 2 minutes or something?
You know what? So he's not late. So this is regular guy audio, because I'll tell you why he's not late. He commented on this like last night or the day before. He was like 24 hours early. So even though he might have been late here, he was definitely early.
The true voice of reason says the forum is a fun place to hang out.
Agreed.
V13 Audio, yo, back to you. I love that logo. That's a clever logo. It's V13 Audio, and it's a V with a 13 in the middle of the V with two massive subwoofers on either side of it. And I have to describe what we look at because it is a podcast too. So we want the viewers to see what we're doing. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump right into it. Nick, let's talk about amplifiers. Let's talk about anything you want to talk about with amplifiers. How important is an amplifier?
Well, I guess that depends if you want to hear anything or not. If you want to hear something, it's very important. You know, it's kind of funny though, because when we talk about amplifiers, there was a time where I felt like, you know, and I think everyone goes through this, where I felt like, hey, an amplifier is an amplifier. Who cares? All it does is just give power to speakers. All of them are going to basically sound the same or whatever. Let's just look for the most power. luckily people like Williston Audio Labs is doing a great job because marketers kind of figured that out. And then they started giving us these power numbers that are unrealistic and really, well, say for lack of a better word, they're dishonest. And so, it's kind of cool. And I'm glad to talk about these because I think when I look at an amplifier, there's a couple things that I really care about with an amplifier. I care about obviously the performance in the essence of, what the wattage is. Although I think you need to care less about that. That's probably one of my least on the list. And then what features it has. And then finally, I like to know what types of chips it has in the chipset, because that usually tells you how good it's going to be. Well, or that obviously depends on the design of the amplifier, but obviously I like those.
So I've started doing some amp dynos. I bought an SMD amp measuring device. It's basically just an AC clamp meter that's been specially designed for audio use. A lot of AC clamp meters, for example, are designed to read house voltage. So if you get far away from 60 hertz, that doesn't do any good, right? So I bought one of those so I could start testing some amplifiers, and I managed to get a little gift from Steve Mead. He sent me a couple of his distortion detectors. Now I'm all set up for doing an amp dyno. And I put my very first one up on the channel today, and nobody watched it.
I watched it. It was
you
good.
Watched it?
I did. Yeah, the Alpine one. Yeah, that was good. And no, it is not old school, by the way.
It's not classified as old school.
Like
so it was an Alpine.
Was it 2008? You said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that means we'd be 13. Like, when it came, like that was 13 years. It's not old school.
Not quite old school. All right.
I don't
know where the line for old school begins and where the line for old school ends. But thank you, Andy, for saying that it was a good amp dyno. But no one watched it, so it doesn't matter that it was a good amp dyno. Y'all watched it because y'all are my loyal viewers that that actually care about what I'm doing. But I don't know if it was the thumbnail or what, but I didn't get a lot of play on that one, so that's okay.
Hey, Justin, real quick, can we highlight audio system specialist one where he says the quality of the parts in the amp make more of a difference in the amp type?
If I can find him,
it's up just low. It's around 705 or 704, I think it was. No, 705.
705. Yeah, there we go.
What do you think about that?
I think he's right. And a lot of it's how the amp is built. For example, when I was doing some amp testing, I was doing a comparison of my oscilloscope for setting gains versus the gain setting device from Steve Mead. There was some fuzz showing up by the oscilloscope. And that fuzz was the Class D power supply doing high frequency switching. And you shouldn't be able to hear it because it happens at 50,000 to 200,000 hertz. But a lot of Class D amplifiers are dirty because they don't do a good job filtering out those high frequency switching coming from a Class D. That's why you see Class D mostly for subwoofer, and people tend to go for the A and B. As regular Guy Audio pointed out in a comment right below, people tend to go for the AB amps for their mids and highs because you're not going to hear that distortion in that subwoofer. It's well above the crossover frequency. But I know that, like, say, the Tony D'Amore brand amps, he makes a big deal with the fact that he throws in some extra capacitors to filter out that switching noise. And a lot of amps do that. But, I wonder how, when the Class D amps sound bad, that's why, because they didn't take the time to put in those filters to filter out the noise. What's that?
I was going to say, I love it's their output stage. And I'll tell you this too. That is why I like Orchard Audio a lot. So I just recently DIY'd one of Orchard Audio's amplifiers. And what they do is almost every Class D amplifier with their switching technology uses silicone-based switching technology. Okay. That's basically their transistors. They're silicone-based. What Orchard has done is they changed to a gallium nitride. And that's top of the line. It can switch faster, less prone to those noise, and it's called a GAN. So gallium nitrate is what that stands for. That's your empirical periodic table of elements. Those are your symbols.
Okay.
GAN. So, but those, and I will tell you, I listened to it today, and I hooked up these cheap Dayton Audio speakers. These, I think they're the MK402s. Or 442s, I think. And I got to tell you, man, that is the best they have ever sounded on anything. no high pitched noise, no, some people say Class D sounds too like high pitch. Nothing like that. It sounded just so natural and clean. And I gotta say, honestly, probably the best amplifier I've heard to date.
Do you have like the ability to throw that up on screen real quick so we can see these things? Because
yeah,
their guy reached out to me to see if I wanted to build anything with them, and I'm a little bit, I don't know, the last few times I had to work with one of these small kind of DIY amp kits, I found it really frustrating because the components are tiny and a little bit electric parts everywhere. I don't enjoy working with circuit boards, but it looks like, from what I gather, they're not cheap. Is that right? They're pretty expensive, aren't they?
They are. And if you want to build it yourself, you can save about $1,000 by building it yourself, which is great. So I'm going to actually have a video out hopefully Sunday that shows you how to build this. And the reason why it wasn't out earlier is because I had a power supply issue. And the issue was this guy. So it is what it is. I made a mistake when I did it. And you know what? Hey, it happens. And the cool thing is Leo was right there. We looked at it together and I figured out what was going on. So let me go ahead and share this screen so you can see this. But yeah, probably one of my favorite DIY boards. It's definitely my favorite if you want sound quality. So these are the little boards that it came with. These are the actual amplifier modules. This is the power supply. This thing is huge. It's a HypeX power supply, 1200 watts. And each one of these are 500 watts. And they have a capacitor board upgrade module, which I recommend. And this obviously stores up power for the dynamics. And then, did I not? Oh, no, page 2. I'll show you a picture of it complete. It must be. Yeah. Well, no, that was me working on it. I lied. Here it is complete. Shot. Yeah, I tried to do some good pictures of it out, but really nice.
I like the logo.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, is that that's anodized aluminum, and then it's etched into the aluminum.
It is, and he likes orchards, so that's why it's called Orchard Audio. He's got like streamers called Pecan Pie, and then these are so they're all named
like a Raspberry Pi. It's the same kind of device, right?
Exactly, and then this is the Stark Rimson, of course. So that's an Apple, I believe, right? Stark Rimson.
Yes, that's correct.
So yeah, so this is what it looks like when it's done. It's a lot of room in there. I think it's about 12 pounds. Really great amplifier, though.
Awesome. Well, along the same lines, with that right there, we have a comment that I wanted to point out. From Blake. Blake has asked if we've seen the new Dayton Audio KAB D amps. And so there's a 4-channel one they're very excited about. And in fact, someone from Parts Express, I think, emailed both of us today to see if we'd be interested in reviewing some of those. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen real quick. I feel like all the controls are in a different space all of a sudden. There it is.
They actually asked me the same. They asked me if I wanted to review the 4-channel one. So maybe I will.
Yeah, maybe it's time to do some 4-channel action here. Let's see if I can find my screen.
And if you get it, you can do a dyno on it. Come on, guys.
That's right, I can.
Dyno, for crying out loud.
So if you aren't familiar with the KAB line, and I just Googled it and just grabbed something random, and this is a Bluetooth receiver board is what this is that I have up on the screen. And so Dayton Audio has more little bitty parts and types of amplifiers than you could ever possibly imagine. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, hit the link down in the description for the Dayton Audio KAB boards, and they're all like this. They're kind of red like this, and they've just got tons of them, and they have them in all different sizes and shapes. And here's, I think this is one of the 4-channel ones. I don't know if it's the new one. It's got a big cooling fan over the main chip, and I know nothing about these. I don't know if the components are good components. I'm not familiar with the chips. I know, Nick, you know more about that than I do.
Sure. So
my cat keeps clawing at me.
Let me tell you a couple basic things on it. One, they're basically made by Shure amplifiers. So if you're familiar with Shure Audio, which make good amplifier boards, these are them. These do use DSP. The DSP software is free. It's by Sigma Studio. It is pretty complicated and very complex. Having said that, you can do a lot with it. Like, it's very powerful. Might take you some time to get used to it. You do need an ICP. So if you buy one of these and you want to DSP it, you buy the Dayton KAB ICP, which stands for In-Circuit Programmer. I don't know the cost of it. I think it's about $20. You only need one of them. You can DSP as many boards as you want with that, but you need to have it because that's what connects the computer and the board together. Without that, it doesn't work.
So I'm pulling up right now.
The DSP doesn't work.
If it'll come up. This is their battery case. And so right behind me back here is the boombox from the boombox build off. In fact, I have two of their boomboxes behind me. Don't know if you can see them. And so the boomboxes on Parts Express use these things. And so again, you want to go down a rabbit hole, you can make anything. You can make boomboxes, you can make powered, battery powered backup devices. And there's just, it's unlimited what you can do with these things. It's just what, whatever your imagination can imagine you can do with these things. Most of them are Bluetooth. Most of them have inputs. And so it's just, if you want to do fun projects, this is a great kind of project part to go with. And again, they have a part for everything.
I think you showed it. And the thing that's cool about these are they're all plug and play. So you can buy the little things like the function cables, which will give you volume control and, the aux in or your power in, all that you can just plug right in, which makes it very easy for people that begin. The only thing I don't like about it is, like I said, and I know AJC, who's also really active on the forum, said that he likes Sigma Studio. And a lot of people do because it's very powerful. But for a beginner, it's hard. If I was a beginner and I wanted to get into DSP and I didn't want to do the Dayton Audio, even though I love the Dayton Audio, and the Dayton Audio is going to be much more powerful, I would go with a Rillick. A Rillick's another DIY board that we both really like. Their name to fame is got to do with whole house audio or linking the boards together, where you can actually use Wi-Fi and do whole house streaming or multi-room streaming, however you want. And they have a software that's what, $20 for all the for one computer.
That's right. It's a $20 one-time license, one-time download fee. And it is a pretty decent DSP. I haven't played with it yet. And the thing I like about our Rillick, again, it's whole house audio, right? And again, we both put links to a Rillick in our picks because we both use them. In fact, here's a little pro tip for you. If you look at the link, it'll have a Rillick and then a bunch of gibberish and then like equals a number. And that number is our affiliate number. So you can see that Nick was the fourth affiliate, the fourth person ever to sign up for the affiliate program with a Rillick. And I was the 79th. I have no idea who's in between us.
I think the first three were actually their employees testing it out. I was the first. No, just kidding. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is we get opportunities to be affiliates with a lot of people. And I've turned down a lot of people. In fact, the ES Go, isn't that the people that you had for the car? I just turned them down. They're like, we want to set up a lifetime affiliate program with you and all. And I'm like, no, because I've heard from Justin that they're not worth it. And I looked at them myself and they were all using MirrorLink and we hate MirrorLink. So I said, no, not going to do that. But if I come across a brand like a Rillick, who I love, and they're not all DIY boards. Like I have two right behind me that are all built together. So you can buy preamps and amplifiers from them that are not DIY. And the thing that I like about a Rillick is they use high quality parts. They all use like Infineon chips, which are top of the line for Class D amplifiers. They don't go cheap on their stuff. They make good quality.
And my take on a Rillick is what I say on all the videos where I review them is don't go buy a Rillick amplifier. Buy 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 because it becomes useful when you've got a whole bunch and you can grab your smartphone app, right? And you can just hit a button and through your entire house you're playing music, and that's kind of cool.
So can I ask AJC, what did you think of them? He said he bought 4 Up2Stream Pro V3. So we want to know what you thought of them. He said he's running them right now. So keep going, Justin. Yeah. He said,
so my take is don't buy one because the main functionality and the main thing you're really paying for as opposed to the KAB boards is the fact that it is whole house. And hey, it's okay if you don't use our links. It's not the end of the world. They're there because they're there as a convenience, and we get a commission if you hit it. So it's not like it's the end of the world if you don't use an affiliate link. We're not gonna get mad at you.
No, I would actually much rather them have a good product like a Rillick than something else. And I love the KAB board, so I'm not gonna say anything bad about them either. I'm just saying if you want an easier to understand DSP, start with a Acrylic.
I don't think the Acrylic DSP will do as much. I don't think it's powerful, but sometimes that's what makes it easier to understand.
Well, you know what? Actually, it's a lot more powerful than you think. Like it can do Linkwitz Riley and things like that, and it automatically, you just input a couple numbers and you're done with. When I say that, like a Linkwitz transform. With the other one, Sigma Studios, you actually have to. It's hard to explain, but you have to input all the data. It's much harder, much more complicated. Now you can figure it out. You're gonna have to watch a couple of YouTube videos in between probably to figure it out, but you like it. It's the streaming and not having Bluetooth latency why I got them. The experience is much better. The stream, I agree. Acrylic makes a great product. I mean, I'm glad that he liked them. I was curious because we hadn't talked about that. I didn't know he did tell me he got them. We never talked about whether he liked them or not.
Awesome. All right. Can we talk car audio for a minute?
Yeah. Those are the Acrylics, by the way. These are the pre-made ones if you are interested. They're nice too.
I actually, honestly, I would recommend just get the pre-made ones. Like I said, I like the DIY kits and they're fun to play with, but I find them a little bit frustrating to work with the small parts. So I would prefer personally just an amp that was ready to go. That's my opinion.
I agree with you, especially with like the KAB being all plug and play. It just makes it much easier. But the thing with the Acrylic too, David gave you a super chat.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that.
The thing with the Acrylic too that I love is the fact that you can, how do I say this? They have boards that you can plug into, like fiber optic input boards and output boards and things.
Yeah. While we're talking about that, I was going to switch to car audio, but I have an example of a nice alternative to one of the KAB boards. This is a Bluetooth amplifier from Parts Express. This is for Dayton Audio. This is a 2.1, and I've got a couple of these laying around the house. I put these in my kids' rooms for their systems, and it's pretty handy. It's Bluetooth. It's got inputs on the back for got some RCA inputs and then like a 3.5 cable. And it puts out a decent amount of power. I need to dyno one of these things. And what's really cool is this is the old version. And the new version has an adjustment for the crossover on the subwoofer. So it has a tone control, which is like, what is this, 1975? Okay, a tone control. A subwoofer level adjust and the main volume. And then the newer version actually has an adjustable low pass filter. Yeah, the low pass filter for the subwoofer. So you can adjust the crossover frequency on the subwoofer. So you can really dial these in quite well.
Yeah, I always like them. I have, which I didn't put on my list, but I also have their bass shaker amplifier, which I really like as well. It's really nice. I just think I think they do a good job. Typically Dayton Audio making nice, inexpensive amplifiers, some that you can afford.
Phil Mobile, well, let me pull up David's super chat and give him a big thank you for that. Phil Mobile asked what the Dayton amp was rated at. I don't remember. I do remember that it's nowhere near what it could possibly do just based on the power supply that came with it. But it's something like 50 watts to the sub or something, and it won't do its rating at all. I doubt it. But it's not, this is something you're going to use in a desktop system or a bedroom system. You're not going to use this for your home theater or something.
No, well, and that's the thing. I think you could use it on like a small television or something, but I don't believe that has remote control though, right?
No, it does not. No, it does not.
What did John K ask? Tell me it is. Tell me like it is, Nick. I'm risking it if I have to hook up a 4-ohm JBL TR22. Wait, what? What are you talking about? The Acrylic? I love them. Absolutely. Hey, we were talking he's on the forum. Yeah, you're risking it if you hook up the 4-ohm JBLs to your Sony. I don't believe that Sony is anywhere close to 4-ohm capable. And this is one thing that I want to talk about later. We don't need to talk about it right now, but home theater receivers are really, really behind the 8-ball on this. And I got to say, I'm really disappointed with home theater receivers because more and more speakers are becoming 4-ohm capable. Amplifiers are almost all at least 4-ohm capable now, except for home theater receivers. And then home theater receivers have done you even dirtier by taking away the RCA pre-outs. So even if you wanted to use 4-ohm speakers, you can't because you don't have your RCA pre-outs to hook up a different type of amplifier unless you go with their more expensive amplifiers. So my opinion with home theater receivers is you guys got to get your act together. You got to get your act together because it's getting tiring.
Jason had a question. Being it has RCAs, I guess it can be used as a somewhat surround sound. So if you had outputs, RCA outputs on your home theater receiver, you could do that. But I wouldn't recommend a 2.1 amp for that. I would recommend one of these. And this is like a lightweight little brick. It's LaPi, which is also a Parts Express brand. Parts Express owns that brand. And this is supposed to be a 200 watt amplifier. There's no way it's going to put out 200 watts. But if you wanted to maybe have a couple of these for surround sounds, if you had RCA outs on the receiver, I think that'd work well. So there's tons of, and I got a link to this as well. It's the same setup. It's got a headphone out connection on it, so you can use it as a headphone amp.
Yeah, I think that's good for a desktop. I had one of those. The one thing I would say about that LaPi is I don't believe it has any protection if you cross your wires. So what I mean by that is, let's just say you have a positive and negative going into that, like with binding posts, and they're not rubber or anything else, so they're insulated. They might touch each other. If they touch each other, it can create a short. Mine actually shorted out the chip on that because they touched. And I'm assuming either it doesn't have protection or my protection failed. Can't tell you which one.
Well,
I like that amplifier. Well, I guess that's true.
What's the difference between failed protection and not having it, right?
That's true.
A condom with a hole in it's worse than no condom at all.
I was just gonna say, there's many kids that know that. Wow. So what other car audio do you have? Did we skip any that you wanted to talk about?
Well, we were still on the little amp. We were still on the little on the home audio stuff. So I saw instead of segueing, I thought I would go with that. But I do have some amplifiers right here that I wanted to show off, and one of them's behind me. Let me turn around and grab it. It's the Alpine MRV or MRP. You had the MRP, the older one, 500, that I did my very first amp dyno video on my channel that I launched today. And I was saying at the beginning of the stream, I didn't get hardly any views. Usually I'll get a couple thousand views in the first few days, and I've gotten maybe 1,100 so far. So if you know people who like amp dynos, share that video with them, because I'd love more people to see what I'm doing with those. So one of my recommends is, of course, the newer version of this one, because this is the old version. It's a rock solid little Class D amplifier, and it's really affordable, and it comes from a decent brand, so you've got a good name behind it, and you can pick these things up used all over the place. Alpine sold a ton of them.
I used to have one. Not that particular one, but an Alpine in that style. It was an older version than the V-Power.
So I think they've got an even newer version out that's actually 1 ohm stable. They have one out now that is 1 ohm stable. So definitely something that I recommend, the Alpine amp. So
yeah, I saw that was impressive. It went way above what I expected it to.
I think it did something like 650 watts at clipping in 2 ohms, which is pretty not bad for a 500 watt amp, right? When I did the dynamic test, it did 489 on a speaker, right? And that's the thing that I think a lot of us don't realize. When you do an amp test into a resistor, that's the best case scenario. That's going to get the most power possible out of the amplifier. But with a speaker, you've got impedance rise and power factor, and so when you have that, you're not going to get that power out of it. Flexon 500 is right. This is actually a full bridge, aka a Brazilian style amplifier. But it's not going to go up in flames like Brazilian amps do.
So I kind of wish that, and maybe you know this, like, is there an easy way to test RMS, like how long it will hold that power wattage for? Because obviously when you're doing those amp dyno tests like that, it's just for an instant, right? So how long will it hold it for? 5 seconds, 10 seconds? Because that all depends on your capacitors.
So what happened to me is, for the first time in a very, very long time, I blew fuses because I was experimenting with it.
Yeah.
And I was turning the gain up. That's how I was just turning the gain up on these things. Not the best way to do an amp dyno. And I didn't realize what I was doing the first time I did it. And I was cranking the gain away, and I popped the fuses, and I had on the resistors way too long. And so I think that, the fuse is the limiting factor because it'll full tilt on a resistor. I do know this. If you ever watched the Kicker show, they did some amp tests and they hooked their amps up to the exact same setup that I've got, but nicer, of course. And they just let the darn things rum, and those things were humming. You could hear them humming in the room. And they just like, oh yeah, we're Kicker. Our amps are badass. Just let them go. They're fine. And they weren't stressed about it at all. It's like, they're not going to blow. They can handle it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, we didn't even, so, all right. I want to talk about some home audio amplifiers because people ask me this all the time. What home audio amplifiers would I recommend? And I'm going to talk about surround sound because I have desktop amplifiers and other amplifiers on my list. But let's talk about surround sound for a second. Here's the deal. Surround sound amplifiers, really what you want to look for is, one, if they're in stock, because almost none are in stock anymore. And two, what do you want out of it? You know, what are the features that you want? So I'm going to share my screen, and this is the one that I think most people should be going with. All right. Now I shared an Amazon link, and guys, there's 2 of these in stock. Only 2. So if you want one, buy it now. It's actually about $1,100, but here's the reason why I like this. 8K ready. So for those of you, if you care about 8K or not, it doesn't matter to me. But here's the main thing I like about it. It has the RCA pre-outs. It has your IMAX enhanced. It has the streaming capabilities of streaming all of your stuff to like Sonos, AirPlay 2. It has Bluetooth both ways, meaning that you can Bluetooth to it, or you can put on Bluetooth headphones at night, which is nice. But the most important thing is it has Dirac Live room correction built in. And anytime you set up a home theater, you're going to need some type of room correction. And the reason why I love this one is because it comes built in, and most people are buying that separate. This is already built in. And as far as I know, there's only a few that do this. And this is kind of like the best one for the price. So for me, it's this one. Plus there's 2 left. So if someone wants to buy one, go buy it. If I was buying one right now, this is the one that I would buy. I'm just not at a place where I need one right now.
And we just had someone pop up in the chat and say hello. Orchard Audio is actually in the chat, Nick. Did you tell them we were going to be talking about him tonight? So
funny thing is, I just messaged Leo and told him that we talked about his amp and that I was very high praising on it. And it's true. I mean, it is a really good amp. And I also mentioned that I was an idiot when I wired up the power, and Leo was very nice and kind to me and very patient with me as I figured out what I was doing wrong. It is what it is. I told you this past weekend, I actually bought a pickup truck, which we're going to be featuring on the channel soon. And I'll be getting some car audio stuff going on in there. But here's the guys, audio system specialist said Orchard Audio, fantastic stuff. And it is. I'm just going to be honest. Like, if you guys really want that one amplifier that you can say, all right, I really want my hi-fi amplifier, I would go with that. If nothing else, for that GaN technology. I mean, it is state of the art right now. And it's pretty nice. And like I said, the best I've ever heard bad speaker sound. It's pretty good. When you can play bad speakers and they sound good on an amplifier, you got something going right.
All right, I've got something for your truck when you're ready to start installing subwoofers in it. Okay.
What is it?
I bought this because I knew you were getting a truck, and I'll send this to you. I got this just for you. Okay.
You didn't know I was getting a truck.
This right here is what you need to install in your truck.
Oh gosh. Like a boss. You know what? Actually, one of my friends sent me, and I'll probably be putting this in the truck. He sent me a subwoofer, and I'll tell you what it is. But you talk amplifiers while I figure out. I can't remember the name of it.
So since I am I can't talk, beginning to do some amp dynos, I'm looking for cheap amps. I'd love to do the same thing that Budget Jim or Budget Bus did, and try to find. And try to find those amplifiers that are really good deals. And I thought, you know what? Why not try a Boss? Because this is one I've never seen before. Notice the connections are all on one side. The first time I've seen a Boss amp with the connections all on one side. And I like the connections all on one side. And so I have already done the dyno on this. I've already filmed it. I just need to edit the footage. And if my other amp dynos I've got coming out do well, we will definitely see an amp dyno of this Boss, and we're going to find out if Boss has changed the way they do things. Is this the new Boss?
Yeah, absolutely. And Orchard Audio is right too, because someone was talking about Doik Audio. I try to tell people all the time to stay away from Doik Audio. They're really cheap Class D amps, and they are very cheap sounding. They're not great. I don't like them. All right, the subwoofer, Pierce Audio WMD, weapon of mass destruction.
I've heard of that.
So
I don't know anything beyond that.
I'll share it. They're crazy. You know what? They are definitely not a sound quality sub. They are all for your SPL style. But here, which is not necessarily me, but I have the subwoofer. It's free, so might as well just hook up DATs to it. But let me share the screen though, because this kind of gives you an idea. I was going to pick it up, but then I realized it's too heavy and it's in a box. This is kind of what they look like. This one, mine is a little older, so it doesn't look quite like that. Huge surround, that type of thing. Justin, you're muted, bud. No one can hear you. You're still muted.
Where did you get that? What's the story again? How did you get your hands on that?
Well, one of my patrons actually gave it to me. He came over and we worked on some projects together, and he said, "Here, I have an extra one of these 12-inch WMDs. Would you like it?" And I said, "Sure." And I was going to put it in the home theater, but now that I have a truck to put it in, why not? I'm going to see if I can pick it up. It's heavy.
Don't hurt your back.
I'm not going to hurt my back. I just don't know if I'm going to hurt the box. All right, here it is. It's a dual magnet. It's not like a quadruple.
Oh, it looks much bigger in the picture.
Well, that's their newer version. It's nicely made, though. This is a dual voice coil. And I haven't measured them, so I don't know if it's dual 2 ohm or dual 4 ohm. Or dual 1 ohm. I don't know. You could. It's massive. It's heavy.
What's the power rating on that?
I'm not sure because it's an older one, but I think it's at least 1K. No, it's not the same one as in the photo. This is the older version of the Pierce Audio, but they're expensive subwoofers. Now, that doesn't mean they're good subwoofers. I don't know if they're good or not. I just know they're expensive.
If it's expensive, it has to be good, right?
Yeah, that's it. I don't like. They're not crazy expensive, actually. Now that I'm looking at that 1K was only $400. Actually, that's actually not too bad. I mean, that's not cheap, but it's not unrealistic.
Brian Hapu asked a question. Hope I said your last name right. Are the power ratings the same across the board for home or car audio? And I'm not sure what you mean when you say that, but what I do know is that the number that a manufacturer puts on the side of a box is nothing more than marketing. It doesn't matter if it's a good number or a bad number. The Alpine amp, for example, that can easily pump out 600 watts. They could call that a 600 watt amp, but they don't. They call it a 500 watt amp. And when it puts out 600 watts, we all go, "Oh, yay, it's a great amp because it puts out more than rated." Whereas Boss does the opposite. They say it's a 3,000 watt amp and it puts out much, much less than that. And people say, well, what a crappy amp. What you need to look at is things like dollar per watt and sound quality and reliability. And the same is true for home audio. These little amps right here, they've got numbers on them that are completely unrealistic. They're just looking at the power supply. There's no way they can do it. And so are they the same across the board in that they're not real? Yeah. The watts is a marketing term. It's not. It's no longer a measure of what an amplifier will do. It's now just a marketing term.
And we've talked about that before. We've talked about how, home theater receivers will tell you the 2-channel wattage instead of all channels driven and all kinds of other things that are going on. And I will say this is the same thing that Big D Wiz said. And if he's listening, which he's not saying anything if he is, one of the things that he mentions as well is that the name brand manufacturers, the reason why you're often getting better than that is because they know that there's going to be tolerances that they have to fight. And so since they know those tolerances, they're gonna underestimate a little, because they don't want it to be underneath the number that they're giving you, because it could be with tolerances of capacitors and everything else that goes into an amplifier design. It's not every one of them is going to rate the same. In fact, even when you watch Big D Wiz's amp dynos, you'll see that one side will often be a couple more watts than the other side. Now, it's completely inaudible, but something to think about.
And that's the kind of way I look at it. In my opinion, if manufacturers were honest, what they would do is they would give you a number, and then the number that you could get on an amp dyno would be plus or minus 5% or plus or minus 10% if it's a lower quality amplifier. Regular Guy Audio's got it right here. If I can click on the link before people, 10% tolerance, right? So if you say it's a 500 watt amp, it ought to do somewhere between 450 and 550 99% of the time. 99% of the ones that come off the assembly line ought to do that. And 1% tolerance, all that basically means is y'all are moving too quick, so I can't click on the 1% tolerance. Basically means that if they say 500 watts, it's going to do 499 or 501. And there's so many games. Orchard has it right here. Rating amps at percentages of distortion. If you look at some old school amplifiers, if you go through the old car audio and electronics, every year they would publish a list of every amp sold. And you could see in the ratings, you can see in the ratings in the manuals, some amplifiers are rated at 1% THD, some are rated at 2%, some are rated at 0.1%. And so it's all over the board. There's no standardization, and it's just a marketing term.
And some will be at 1 watt, some will be at full wattage. You never know. So here's one thing I will say. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that Orchard Audio in
drop in the chat.
Yeah, this is to the website, because I'm going to show you one thing that I really loved about what Leo can do for you. If you want to, you have to pay for it, but Leo can actually hook it up to his testing equipment and tell you exactly what each amplifier does. And he did that with the amplifier modules he sent me, and there's links to those on the website. So if you want to check that out, and that's pretty cool, because now you have that documentation saying this is what my amplifier does or doesn't do, and ahead of time, which is, I think, fantastic. And that does a THD plus N, so THD plus noise. He gives you that, and that's why he can tell you, hey, his are underrated, because he knows that what is THD plus N, and he shared it with me. And like I said, I put it on the website. You should check those out. It's actually pretty cool.
Indeed. What else you got to show us? I feel like I've been talking too much, Nick.
Well, you know what? I want to talk about SMSL, and I want to talk about Dilf Poetry. Dilf Poetry and SMSL are basically owned by the same company. We'll put it that way.
Okay, these are brands, SMSL and
Dilf Poetry. Yeah, our brands. Right now, I have an SMSL DAC right here. It's the only DAC I put on the whole list because I like it that much. It's an amazing DAC. I did a review on it. I'm not going to talk about it today, but I will tell you, if you only had one DAC to buy, I would buy that DAC. I love that DAC. It's just fantastic. I've reviewed quite a few DACs, and that comes in by far the best. The Dilf Poetry is also nice too, because it's a tube DAC and a headphone amplifier. But I put some headphone amplifiers on there that I really like, and I also put some regular amplifiers. And I will tell you this, I used to never use headphone amplifiers. These are a much higher impedance, so I needed a headphone amplifier. I think these are only 80 ohms, so these actually aren't the real crazy ones. You can get 200 ohm and things of that nature. But I will tell you, once I hooked it up to the DAC and to a great DAC and a great headphone amplifier, it completely changed the way that I listen to things with my headphones. And I would strongly encourage anyone that hasn't done that to do that. And I would look at brands like SMSL. Dilf Poetry is another one that I really like if you like that tube style. The reason why I like the SMSL DAC, though, is you can actually go in. It has sound color modes, and you can turn those sound color modes on to make it sound like a tube amplifier, make it sound standard. I mean, you can make it sound, I think there's like 10 or 12 different ones. You have to watch the review. I can't remember exactly, but awesome. You're muted.
Again, here's a question for you. When do I know I need to get a headphone amp? I used a headphone amp. So at what point should I be looking at one?
If you're wearing headphones.
I'm wearing headphones now and I don't have a headphone amp. Have I made a huge mistake?
No, I'm just saying when you start using a good headphone amp, as long as it has a DAC in there, if you have a DAC and a headphone amp together and you start using that, you'll be surprised at the difference in sound.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you get high-end headphones that have a higher impedance, you have to have one.
Gotcha. Like how high of an impedance are you talking?
Well, 80 ohm is high enough.
Okay.
These, if I plug into my TV or my computer right away, I can still hear it, but it's going to be quieter. If I really want to drown out the noise, I'm going to probably want it.
And it's really about having enough power for sound quality, because you don't need a lot of power because the speakers are right up in your ears, right? It's a sound issue.
Yeah, it's more of a cleanliness.
Hey, like I got a comment here.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, your 3.5 millimeter jack out of whatever is not very clean. So it's gotcha. Dirty sounding. That's all it means.
That's why everything sounds bad when I listen to my headphones. Hey, we got a question here I want to throw up on the screen real quick, because Everyday Jay has started a YouTube channel. He has a growing YouTube channel, which can mean anything. I consider mine a growing YouTube channel. Do you have any advice? Generally, we try to talk about YouTube on our live streams. Last year, we did a YouTube specific channel where we kind of got all that out of our system. And maybe it's time to do another YouTube specific show. If you think we should do a YouTube specific show, give us a thumbs up or a me too or something in the chat, or type YT for YouTube. And we might do a show where we talk about experiences on YouTube. But the best advice I can give someone is lighting.
I think that pound me too is a different one. I don't think that
pound me too,
or I'm sorry, hashtag. That's the right one. Hashtag.
Okay, but but the best advice I can give is lighting. Lighting is important, and I'm not good with my lighting, but bad lighting is the worst thing. Terrible lighting makes for terrible videos. So that's the basic advice I'm going to give.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with the advice part. Not because I just feel like we've covered it so much. I don't really even know what other advice to give except keep going at it. Don't give up. As soon as you think that you're down, you're going to figure it out. Like we both had to take some time and figure out what our viewers really liked. Pound me too. Just you should say that.
I think Nick said that actually. Nick's the one who said
that. No,
you
said it back. You said pound me too.
Yeah.
Hey guys, just so you know, it was a pound sign first. Then it became a hashtag. I don't even know when it became a hashtag. I don't know how it became a hashtag. I just know it used to be a pound sign. We're showing our age now.
And I don't even know what the hell a hashtag is. That's a damn pound sign.
That's a pound sign. Yeah.
And literally, like, the reason why it became a pound sign was people were writing LB and they were just like lazy and trying to write it fast. And they just ended up taking shortcuts and it merged into what we know now as the pound sign, not a hashtag.
I know. My kids once said, give me a pound. And I tried to give them a hashtag. I didn't understand. Oh, geez. But I do think it takes time to get to know your audience.
We might do a YouTube show at some point, because I think I've learned a lot about it since then. I know there's a lot of people in the chat that have some YouTube channels they have trying to get rolling. So maybe a YouTube secrets channel, a live stream might be wise one day in the future. So
yeah, I'd definitely be willing to do that. Everyday Jay. It's more of a tic-tac-toe sign. That too. See, it's more fun.
If you've got 2,000 subs, 800,000 views, you're actually doing pretty good on the views. You're doing a good job of getting attention.
Yeah. The one thing I've noticed about reviews personally, and I think we both have kind of figured this out. It's a hit or miss. You don't know who's going to want to watch it, who's not going to want to watch it. And it's almost product dependent. I was watching Linus Tech Tips the other day, and he has over 14 million subscribers. Crazy. I've really enjoyed his channel too. He's just a really fun guy to watch. Anyway, he had like 1.5 million views on this one video. And it's not because, you think 14 million views, he should be getting at least 7 million or whatever, 14 million subscribers, he should be getting at least, 7 million. But that's just not how reviews work. I mean, reviews, like, only about 10% of his audience was interested in that. It's just how it happens.
Yep. So let's talk about this real quick. Let me show this. I like to talk about amps that I have experience with, and this one right now is currently in my vehicle. This is the Down for Sound, the JP8 amplifier, and it seems to work as advertised. It's an amplifier. You hook it up and it makes music. The thing I like the most about it is the look. That's what it has going for it. It's got a fantastic bass knob, and at $170 for an amp that will do, depending on how they rate it versus what it's been tested. Derek tested one of these. It'll do between 800 and 1200 watts, depending on your voltage. And I guess the humidity or something, because like they call it 800 watt amp, but it will do more than 800 watts. And for $170, maybe that's a pretty good deal. And to kind of compare it to the Alpine that I love, right, is around $200 plus or minus. And so, but it's less power. So if you want more power, the Down for Sound amp will come with a bass knob and give you more power. And it's got this cool retro look. So it's something that I don't know. Do I recommend it? I don't know. I use it. But it's there. So I can't go without mentioning it. And honestly, to me, the best part about it is I think it looks cool. And sometimes looking cool is the most important part of car audio.
Yeah. I have no experience with Down for Sound. I don't know. For some reason, I don't have a great perception of them, and maybe that's just me, not knowing enough about them. Maybe I should have a better perception about their products, their amplifiers. I don't know. And I'll say this because I will say this because I've listened to a lot of cheap Class D amplifiers. I think on subwoofers, it's a little less important because it's been proven the lower you go down in frequency, the less distortion you hear, right? So you have that going on. But I think that's the reason why I really appreciate brands like SMSL and LoxG. I put a LoxG amplifier in there. A30 is a fantastic amplifier. If you're on a budget, you want just a cheap 2-channel amplifier, great. I think it also has a subwoofer out on that one. I had one of those. I sold it to my patrons again in my last garage sale. Someone got a smoking deal on that. I think they only spent like $25 on it. It was used for testing it only. Like I tested it one time and then sold it. But yeah, I would highly recommend those good brands because they use good parts. You can find cheap amplifiers everywhere, but you got to be careful if you care about what it sounds like.
Absolutely. What else do you have on your wish list or your list of amps that you want to talk about?
What's up with Vanilla Ice? He says 25. You don't like Vanilla Ice or the owner for Down for Sound? Does Vanilla Ice have something to do with Down for Sound or what?
I don't know. I think like the guy who runs it has a kind of Vanilla Ice looking haircut, maybe.
Oh, I actually don't know who runs it. So
okay.
and honestly, it could be a fantastic amplifier. I have no idea. Like I said, you know how you have this idea of a product, even though you've never used it, you just have this feeling of whatever. For whatever reason, Down for Sound has that for me, and I don't know. It's just my perception. I could be completely wrong. I don't know.
I noticed that people who do this YouTube thing oftentimes get, a following, and oftentimes they get haters at the same time, and maybe there's a reason.
Yeah. I do like, I used to love like Eclipse. They're out of business. And when I get this truck, I'm going to start testing some amplifiers. I'll probably care more about the sound quality of it versus, the performance, because we've talked about this. I know I did a video on this, like how much wattage do I really need? I think I actually labeled the video, double the wattage doesn't mean double the sound volume. And there's just a truth to that. Believe it or not, like the difference between an 800 and 600 watt amplifier with, most car audio subwoofers that are very inefficient is not going to be a huge difference in output necessarily.
And it's logarithmic, right? And so, and generally what is it? It takes double the wattage, double the power to increase. Is it 6 decibels or 3? I think it's 6.
3 decibels.
Is it 3? Okay, that's even worse. Right. And so double the power to get a 3 decibel increase. And so if you're able to do 130 decibels in your car, well, double the power to get 3 more. And it doesn't even work that well because there are power compression issues and other things that contribute to it. So you get diminishing returns, right? The first couple of watts give you the most gain over nothing, and then adding more power doesn't always help, but it's fun to add more power.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk to Matt Starks because I think we both have an opinion to this. He said bad publicity is good publicity, and I would disagree with that. Bad publicity is publicity, and bad publicity can lead to more product awareness, which can lead to more sales, but it doesn't necessarily mean good publicity.
All right, Nick, what plate amps have you used for home subwoofers?
I actually use that in the ISO 100 build. If you haven't seen the ISO 100 build, you should check that build out. I took 4 of those GRS 10-inch subwoofers that were like, what are they, $20 a piece?
Yeah, yeah.
I think they're 25 now.
Well, yeah, they've gotten really expensive now.
They went way up in price. But yeah, I took 4 of those and hooked it up with that. Put them in an isobaric loading 3 cubic foot box, and that thing will shake your house down to 20 hertz, like really well. I use that, but most of my subwoofer amplifiers, because I'm using bigger subwoofers like the MX15, Ultimax, subwoofers like that, you want more of a PA subwoofer style. So I use a Crown amplifier, so it's PA style.
Right. So you don't bother with the plate amp for your bigger ones. And I would say that's definitely the route you want to go, because if you look at, say, the 1,000-watt version of that amplifier, that is a $500, single channel, 1,000 watt into, I think it's 4 ohms. And I think Derek tested one of these and got about 950 watts out of it. But a Crown amp, like you're talking about, is less expensive than this and gives you similar kind of power, doesn't it?
Yeah, or it'll give you more. It all depends. The Crown amplifier that I have, you got to be careful though. So a lot of people will go with like the Crown XLS series. I don't recommend that if you're going home theater personally, because it has a 30 hertz high pass that's not defeatable. Like you can't bypass that. So I like the XTI series better. Or you can go with Behringer. Behringer has their NX series, and I like their NX series. They have the DSP on their NX series, and I say go with the NX DSP one. Those are completely overrated, by the way. 1,000, 3,000, and 6,000 are their ones. Once again, they're hard to find.
AJC also mentioned that there are DSP versions, so you can have a subwoofer with a DSP control, full DSP control on these Dayton Audio amplifiers. So you can go that route as well. And you know what? The one with the DSP is just $25 more, it looks like, than $35 more. I didn't realize it was just 30 or $40 more, else I would have gotten one of those.
But there's a difference. That's a Class D, and the other one's a Class AB. And the Class AB will oftentimes have a little bit better power supply for dynamics.
There's also the Bash amplifiers, and I'm currently running one of the Young amplifiers. I'm not seeing the exact model, but
there it is.
One thing I'm trying to do is only point out things I've had experience with. I don't want to talk about an amp I haven't run. I've actually had 2 of these. One of them had a little lightning strike, and it bit the bullet, and so I replaced it with one, and it works just fine. So I'm happy with it. I think Derek did test this one and the 250 watt one on his channel, and they both performed just fine.
So he tested this, and he tested the Dayton 250 watt.
Yes, and in the same video.
This did okay, but the Dayton with dynamics blew it out of the water.
And
that's what I'm getting at with the better power supply on the Dayton Audio, that Class AB. We'll have to do that. I believe if you go back to the Dayton Audio again, not the 250, do they have a 500 watt version?
Yes, they've got a 500 watt version.
I think the 500 watt you can hook up a microphone to, and it will auto DSP it. No, the DSP one. I'm sorry.
Oh, the DSP version. Let's see if I can find the DSP version on the 500.
It was right next to
the 250. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
It might be the 1,000 watt. I thought 500 and 1,000 watt did it.
I think you're right. I think that they did have the ability to use a mic to set them up. But yeah, I mean, $300 for a 500 watt amp with a DSP, that's not too bad. I wouldn't hesitate to give that a try.
But I mean, that's the thing. You can get an iNuke 3000 DSP for about $330. So I would do that instead. You get the iNuke 3000 DSP. It's not actually called the iNuke anymore. It's called the NX 3000D.
The NX 3000
D, yeah.
D?
Yeah.
By Behringer.
Well, just hit enter, but you put 300, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's about 330, right? Oh, it's about 390. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine.
But still,
well,
you
cool.
can go down. You can go down to 2 ohm with it. So
really,
you can do multiple speakers. So 1500 watts at 2 ohms per side.
1500 watts at 2 ohms per side.
Yeah. Now it's not going to give you that much. You're probably closer to 1000 watts, 2 ohms per. But still, you could hook up 4 subwoofers easily to that.
That sounds like fun. Awesome. I think that's the way to go. I mean, I think the smaller plate amps are fine, but if you're running some bigger power, you want to go with an amp like you're talking about. I don't know enough about them. I need to do some more research on them. So,
well, I
was asking actually earlier. They were going to build some Dayton Audio Ultimax 18s, and what do you want to use to amplify them? The Crown or the Behringer PA amp is the answer.
Yeah, the only thing about the Behringer amp, I'll tell you right off the bat, when you fire that thing up, it sounds like a jet in your house. You have to do the fan mod. And that's very simple. It's $15 fan. Actually, I think it's $12 fan. It's by Noctua. It's on my website. You can look it up.
Fan mod.
Yeah, it's $12 and it takes you about 10 minutes to do.
All right. I'm looking at the clock and we are over an hour, Nick. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up? Are there some more amps you wanted to go over or anything you wanted to add?
No. I think we actually touched on pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I can't think of anything else I want to talk about. How about you?
I want to talk about what I've got coming up on my channel next.
Oh, that's a good call. What is it?
Yeah, so I've already shown you the Boss amp that I've already filmed the amp dyno for. That's going to come on a little bit later in a couple of weeks. I want to have that edited and kind of in the bin so I can drop that a little bit later if I'm having a week where I'm having trouble getting the video up. But I've already posted next week's video up on YouTube, and I've got access just for my patrons on Patreon. So if you're one of my patrons, you can see the next amp dyno that I have set up. And I'm really hoping that one will get a few more views because I'd love to be able to do amp dynos. And if no one watches them, right, if only getting 2,000 views, I can't do them, right? But I got an amp coming up that I'm going to do my next amp dyno on, and I've got it right here. This is one you may have heard of or maybe not. It's a brand I found on Amazon that I've never seen before. I know nothing about it. It's called Recoil Audio.
I thought that was a gun.
And this is a Recoil Audio RED 600.1. And so the question is, will the Recoil Audio do its rated power? And well, my patrons know.
I'm going to highly doubt it already. I have no idea.
Do you want to put some money on it?
No, because you know the answer.
Because I've already seen it.
This is like my wife and I will always, I know 100% certainty of something. And I'll say, do you want to bet? And she'll be like, no, but I'm right. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want to bet on it? No. Yeah, you know that when I say you want to bet on it, trust me, I've won. I don't bet unless I know I won.
Duha says Recoil is out of business. I don't know anything about Recoil, but Recoil popped up on Amazon, their amp, for the first time ever this week. I've never seen one of their amps. So maybe they're out of business and they've got a few on Amazon floating around. So we'll find out.
To your voice of reason said, what about go-karts? So anyone that knows that or is on the website is set up more like a social media website now. So you can actually put different things on there. You can create, just whatever you're doing for fun. And one of the things I like to DIY in my own time is go-karts. So I have 4 of them now, and I'm switching the engines around all the go-karts and figuring it out. And so I put that on there. So if you guys are interested in that, it's kind of cool. I do modifications and stuff to them. So yeah, that'll be on the website. It won't be on the channel, but it'll be on the website. So I mentioned this to you guys last week. I think this is the new Osman Android Auto Apple CarPlay car unit. This thing is pretty cool because it does wireless Android Auto, wireless CarPlay, and it comes with like your backup camera, your microphone, everything. So it's pretty much everything you set up, and it's one of the thin ones, and it has physical buttons, which I love.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and it's cheap. It's like $200. Now, here's the deal. This one actually was a return from Amazon. and it got sent to me from Amazon. It's not a fault of the companies at all. And it came with a scratch screen.
Oh,
I reached out to the company and talked to them because it said I couldn't get another one for like a month. The company sending me another one right on the bottom. So far, they have been a delight to work with. I already know what I think about this unit, but I'm going to wait till I get the new one in, and I'll install it, and I'll tell you what I think about it. So that video will be coming out as soon as I get the new one in. But this week, I'm going to be doing the Orchard Audio video. So we talked about that amplifier a lot. That should be coming out Sunday, anyone that's interested in that. I'm also going to be testing a bunch of compression drivers, and the results are going to go on my Patreon page before I do the video. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Just go become a patron. $2 tier and above gets access to that. That is going to be on 4 different compression drivers, including the BNC that everyone loves. It's going to include the Celestion that I used in the Cinema 10. And the BNCs actually want to use in the Cinema 6. And then it's going to include 2 of the brand new SB Audience. The only reason why that wasn't out already is because Matty Sound had an issue. Basically, that one of the drivers I was testing wasn't on their website yet. And I think that's going to be fixed this week. So I don't like putting video. I'm sure you're the same way. I don't like putting videos out if you can't buy the product. And I don't get commission off that. I don't want to show you something if you can't buy it though.
Yeah. Even if we can't do an affiliate link, showing you something you can't buy is not really useful for anybody. I mean, here's this cool thing nobody can buy. Ha!
Yeah. Here's this driver that I either like or hate. Here's the test results. If you want to buy it, you can't. And that's 6. But and the one that I'm using in that is going to be on the new JTR build. So I really wanted to make sure that you guys could see how it performed. Someone asked me, Toy, do you do more home stuff over car audio? And the answer is yes, I do. And I love Andrew Jones as a speaker designer in general. I think he's a great speaker designer. He's come up with some of the best speakers that you can buy, especially for the price. So I have nothing bad to say. Now, I will say this. Who was it? Joe Intel, when we did the Dynas together, he did say that he preferred the Dynas over the towers that he did for Pioneer, which was, for me, a high praise. Even though that's his opinion, I took that as very high praise because I have a lot of respect for Andrew Jones.
All right. Well, I think that is it. I'm ready to wrap it up. You ready to wrap it up?
I am.
Right.
I'm out.
And we will see you on the next adventure.
See you guys.